The 1920s was an era of economic prosperity and carefree living. Many Americans owned cars, telephones, and televisions for the first time. World War I had just come to an end, and mass consumerism had begun since Americans now had more money to spend. Women's role in society began to change, and the nation's total wealth more than doubled between 1920 and 1929. The new woman wore shorter clothing, had bob hairstyles, and engaged in activities that weren't considered ladylike, like drinking and smoking. The 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol, which drove underground liquor trading called bootlegging. It also led to the creation of speakeasies, which people attended frequently. The automobile was the most important consumer product of the 1920s. The Ford Model T was very affordable, which allowed almost everyone to have one. By 1929, there was one car on the road for every 5 Americans. The increase in automobiles led to the creation of business-like service stations and motels to fit the driver's needs. The parties in Gatsby's mansions are accurate to some extent. The gaudy and extravagant outfits worn by the women were consistent with outfits of partygoers in the 1920s. The music during the parties is accurate, but the soundtrack of the movie itself is obviously modernized to appeal to a 21st century audience. As for the partygoers themselves, there are interracial couples, drag queens, and black dancers. There would not be this type of diversity and racial acceptance at a wealthy 1920s party. Helium balloons were also not a common decoration during this era.
Oh, you penniless panty waste.
The Great Gatsby accurately demonstrates the effects of the Prohibition movement. With World War I at the end and the nation in high spirits, the demand for liquor quickly increased and speakeasies multiplied. In this scene, Nick walks into a speakeasy filled with people. Throughout the movie, there is speculation that Gatsby was a bootlegger, which wouldn't be hard to believe since organized crime was on the rise.
Benjamin Franklin's field, folded just for the thrill. Go numb until I can't feel. All my pockets peel. Stock market just crash. Now I'm just the bill. History don't repeat itself.
Automobiles began being mass-produced in the early 1900s. Because of a booming economy, more people could afford a car. This meant they could live in the suburbs, like Gatsby of West Egg, and commute to the city to work. There became a growing need for gas stations and mechanics like Wilson in the poor areas to tend to these automobiles.
You must think I'm pretty dumb, don't you? Well, I have a second sight sometimes that tells me what to do. I've made a small investigation into this fellow.
And you found he was an Oxford man?
Oxford, New Mexico. He wears a pink suit, for Christ's sake.
Out of gas.
Wilson! Wilson! What are you waiting for? Let's have some gas! Do I have to do it myself? You think I come here to...
Overall, The Great Gatsby represented the 1920s accurately.